Have you ever felt like your own family could be your biggest enemy? Linda did. Her mother didn't just ruin her love life, she went even further. She convinced Linda's boyfriend to marry her own younger sister. Not because he stopped loving Linda, but because her mother believed the younger daughter was more suitable. Years passed, and life went on, until one unforgettable night, at a grand family party, Linda walked in with a man no one expected. When her mother and her sister saw who he was, everyone was left speechless. Before we dive into this incredible story, if you enjoy real-life twists with deep emotions and satisfying endings, make sure to subscribe to the channel. This way, you won't miss out on stories that stay with you long after they end. And tell me, have you ever forgiven someone who truly didn't deserve it? Let's begin. Linda was never the type of woman who dreamed of fairy tales. She valued hard work, quiet loyalty, and a simple life. In her early 20s, she built a modest life for herself, a stable job at a small accounting firm, and a cozy little apartment where she could drink her evening tea, watching the sunset in peace. Then Tom appeared. He wasn't rich or famous, but he was kind, attentive, and had a warm laugh that made the world feel less heavy. They met at work during a small company project, and before either of them realized, they became inseparable. For 4 beautiful years, Linda and Tom shared everything: late-night walks, quiet Sundays, small getaways to the lake. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't flashy, it was real. But Linda's family didn't see it that way. Her mother, Evelyn, was a woman of strong opinions. To her, love was not about comfort or kindness. It was about strategy, social status, and long-term gain. Evelyn believed a man should be ambitious, financially powerful, and capable of lifting an entire family's status. She liked Tom, but she didn't think he was enough. At every Sunday dinner, Evelyn would smile politely, but slip in little comments. Tom, when are you planning to take the management exam? Linda, don't you think you could have chosen someone a little more established? Linda ignored it, brushing it off, until it became impossible to ignore. One evening, Evelyn sat her down with that same motherly smile. Linda, I've been thinking about your future, Evelyn began, and I think you're making a mistake. Linda's heart tightened. Evelyn continued, Tom is good, but Sarah would be better for him. Linda blinked, confused. Sarah, my younger sister Sarah. Yes, sweetheart, Evelyn said calmly. Tom needs direction, strength. Sarah can give him that. Linda could barely breathe. Sarah was 5 years younger, more outgoing, more charming in a crowd, but Linda always thought they had their own separate paths. Why would you even say something like this? Linda asked quietly. Evelyn leaned in. Because, darling, family is strategy. We have to secure our position. Sarah can help Tom become the man he's meant to be, and you will find someone better suited for your calm nature. That night, Linda felt her world tilt. She told Tom everything, expecting him to be shocked, to defend their love, to stand by her side. But Tom hesitated. Days turned into weeks, and Linda began noticing strange things. Sarah spending more time at the office, offering Tom help on projects, inviting him to group dinners. Evelyn encouraging it all with a knowing smile. Then Linda found the message, a text from Sarah to Tom, that read, Don't worry, I will always have your back. We'll build something great together. Her chest tightened. She confronted Tom, and for the first time, Tom didn't deny it. He confessed how Evelyn had been speaking to him, how Sarah promised him connections, business opportunities, and a stronger future. Linda stood, shattered, betrayed by her own family, and the man she loved. That evening, she made the hardest decision of her life. She walked away from the man she thought would be her forever, from the family that used love as a bargaining chip. But the story didn't end there, not even close. Linda thought leaving would be the end of it. She believed walking away from Tom and from her mother's poisonous words would give her peace, but peace was nowhere to be found. In the months that followed, Linda learned the full depth of the betrayal. Her mother, Evelyn, didn't just encourage Sarah to steal Tom, she orchestrated everything. Friends told Linda how Evelyn introduced Tom to distant relatives, how she set up little dinners behind Linda's back, how Sarah always seemed to be in the right place at the right time. The more Linda uncovered, the clearer it became. This was never just about love. This was manipulation, plain and simple. Then came the final blow. One chilly November afternoon, Linda was sitting at a local cafe, trying to distract herself with a good book, when her phone buzzed. It was a photo from a mutual friend, a picture of Tom, smiling, standing next to Sarah and Evelyn in a small, intimate engagement party. No warning, no invitation, no explanation, just a photo thrown into her world like a knife. Her hands trembled, heart pounding. She felt humiliated, discarded, like she never mattered. She couldn't understand how a mother could do this to her own child. A week later came the letter, delivered by hand, from Evelyn. It wasn't a letter of apology. It was a demand. Evelyn wrote, "Linda, it's time to stop being stubborn. Tom and Sarah are getting married, and it's best you accept it. Family must come first. You'll see, in the long run, this was for everyone's good." Linda's jaw tightened. It wasn't just betrayal, it was cruelty, disguised as logic. Then she discovered something even worse. Her bank account, the small savings she worked so hard for, had been tampered with. Evelyn had co-signed Linda's first account years ago, when Linda was fresh out of college. Without Linda realizing, Evelyn had withdrawn nearly half of Linda's savings. No explanation, no warning. Linda stood frozen, feeling the ground collapse beneath her. It wasn't just Tom or Sarah. Her own mother had stolen from her, emotionally and financially. Her life, built on quiet, hard work, was being ripped apart by people she trusted most. For a few days, Linda disappeared from everyone. She turned off her phone, didn't respond to anyone, even ignored her closest friends. She walked along the lakeside, breathing in the cold air, asking herself, was this all she was worth? Did love, family, loyalty mean nothing? But in that silence, something remarkable happened. Linda found a strange sense of clarity. She realized they didn't deserve her tears. They didn't deserve her breakdown. They didn't deserve her surrender. If Evelyn wanted her gone, she would leave, but on her own terms. If Sarah wanted Tom, she could have him. But Linda would build something far stronger. That night, Linda packed her bags. She emptied the rest of her savings and moved across the state to a small town by the coast, far away from the chaos. She rented a simple room, got a temporary job, and promised herself she would rebuild brick by brick. She would take back what they stole from her heart, her dignity, her future. But little did Linda know, the story was far from over. The first few weeks were the hardest. Linda had spent most of her adult life living for others, pleasing her mother, keeping peace with her sister, and loving a man who ultimately didn't stand up for her. Now, for the first time, she was completely on her own. Her new town was nothing like the busy city she had left behind. It was quieter, slower, a little rough around the edges, but it had charm, the kind of charm that grows on you if you let it. Linda rented a small studio above a local bakery. Every morning, the smell of fresh bread drifted into her apartment, reminding her that life could still be warm. Her first job wasn't glamorous. She worked as a receptionist at a small boat repair company. The pay was modest, but the people were kind. They didn't know her story. They didn't care about family gossip or betrayal. They just knew her as Linda, the quiet woman who always showed up on time and smiled politely. At first, Linda struggled. Nights felt lonely, weekends were long, and every quiet moment felt like a reminder of what she had lost. But little by little, things began to shift. She discovered the peaceful joy of morning walks by the harbor, watching the fishing boats drift out at dawn. She found comfort in learning new skills, bookkeeping for the repair shop, managing schedules, handling clients. And she started reading again, not to distract herself, but to genuinely enjoy the quiet escape of a good story. One day, on a whim, she joined a local community group, organizing small charity events. It wasn't much, but it connected her to people who didn't judge or expect anything except kindness. Linda was finding herself again. There were moments where memories stung, seeing couples hold hands, or hearing songs that reminded her of Tom, would bring back a dull ache in her chest. But instead of drowning in it, Linda learned to breathe through it. One evening, after months of working tirelessly, Linda sat at her small kitchen table, sipping tea, looking over her savings. For the first time, in what felt like forever, she had something to smile about. She had cleared her debt, built back a small savings account, and even managed to afford a little second-hand car. It wasn't much, but it was hers, earned honestly, without anyone pulling strings or making decisions behind her back. Her confidence slowly returned. She started speaking up more at work, suggesting improvements, helping the company streamline some processes. Her boss noticed, and within 6 months, she was promoted, handling their small business finances. Life was becoming stable, peaceful, fulfilling. One afternoon, while attending a community fundraiser, Linda bumped into a man named Daniel. He was in his early 50s, ran a local bookstore, and had the warmest, most genuine smile Linda had seen in years. They started talking, casually at first, about books, local events, and life in the town. Over the weeks, those small conversations turned into coffee dates, then into walks by the seaside, then into quiet dinners filled with laughter. Daniel never asked about Linda's past. He only cared about who she was. Now, for the first time, Linda felt truly seen. She wasn't the woman who lost everything. She was the woman who built herself back up, stronger, freer, and wiser. And just when Linda thought life had finally settled, a letter arrived, with her mother's handwriting on the envelope. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside were words she didn't expect: an invitation to a family party, a party she was never meant to attend. Linda stared at the letter, heart pounding, realizing her story was about to take another unexpected turn. 4 years passed. Linda no longer recognized the woman she used to be. She was no longer the quiet girl, living in the shadow of her family, or clinging to a man who didn't fight for her. Now she stood tall, independent, surrounded by a life she had built on her own terms. Her small apartment by the harbor had become a cozy home. Her career had grown steadily, and Daniel, the man with the warm smile, had become a true companion. They weren't rushing, they weren't chasing perfection, they were just happy. Then, out of nowhere, it arrived, a letter, sealed in a thick white envelope, with handwriting she hadn't seen in years. Evelyn, her mother's tone, was almost casual. "We are having a family gathering to celebrate Sarah and Tom's anniversary." It read. It was written as if nothing had ever happened, as if for years of silence, for years of betrayal, could be swept away with a single invitation. At first, Linda wanted to toss it aside, burn it, pretend it didn't exist. But curiosity crept in. What had changed, if anything? What did her family look like now? And why, after 4 years, were they suddenly reaching out? Daniel watched her read the letter. He didn't offer advice. He simply said, "Whatever you decide, make sure it's for you, not for them." Linda thought about it, long and hard, and then she made her decision. She would go, not for forgiveness, not for approval, but to see, with her own eyes, the people who had once thrown her away. The day of the party arrived. Linda dressed simply, but elegantly, a soft navy blue dress, hair neatly pinned, minimal makeup, but her posture spoke volumes. Nyo insisted on accompanying her, but Linda chose to go alone. This was her closure, her reckoning. As she drove through the winding roads, back to her childhood town, memories came rushing back. The laughter, the dinners, the betrayal, the heartbreak. Her heart pounded, but her grip on the steering wheel remained steady. When she pulled into the driveway, the house looked just as it did years ago. Perfectly trimmed bushes, pristine white porch, the same wind chimes that used to sing in the summer breeze. Inside, voices echoed, clinking glasses, forced laughter. Linda took a deep breath and walked in. The room fell silent for a moment. Then Evelyn appeared, her smile rehearsed, her tone sugar-coated. "Well, look who decided to join us," she said. Linda nodded politely, choosing grace over confrontation. Sarah and Tom stood nearby, arms around each other, beaming with pride. Sarah looked polished, successful, maybe a little tired around the eyes. Tom looked older, heavier, his smile lacking its old warmth. Guests mingled, awkwardly glancing at Linda, unsure how to approach her. Evelyn quickly stepped in, announcing Linda's return, painting it as a family reunion, instead of what it really was, a staged spectacle. Linda observed every word, every fake laugh, every shallow compliment, and quietly, she smiled, because she knew something they didn't. She wasn't there to be accepted. She wasn't there to beg for their attention. She was there because she chose to see them for who they really were. Evelyn tried to pull Linda into conversations, boasting about Sarah's new business ventures, Tom's recent promotion, their fancy vacations, but Linda stayed calm, polite, distant. Then came the first real surprise. Tom approached her, drink in hand, and said softly, "Linda, you've changed. You seem happier." It wasn't jealousy. It wasn't sarcasm. It was regret. Linda simply smiled and replied, "Yes, I am." And as the evening went on, Linda realized this wasn't the home she longed for. These weren't the people she missed. This was just the house she grew up in, but never truly belonged to. But the biggest moment was still to come. Linda walked deeper into the house, feeling the weight of every stare, every whispered word, following her like a shadow. She kept her head high, shoulders back, determined not to flinch. Evelyn, ever the hostess, paraded from guest to guest, introducing Linda as though she had always been part of these family gatherings. But Linda could see it clearly, the awkward glances, the uncomfortable silences, the forced smiles. People remembered. They knew the story, the betrayal, the scandal that had ripped through the family years ago. Linda found herself standing by the large bay window, watching the garden outside, when Evelyn approached. "So," Evelyn began, smoothly, "how have you been, dear?" Linda kept her gaze steady. "Better than you expected." Evelyn's smile faltered, just for a split second, before she recovered. "That's wonderful," Evelyn chirped. "It's so nice to have everyone together again, like nothing ever happened." Like nothing ever happened. Linda felt the words press against her ribs, but she refused to let it show. Before she could respond, a chime rang through the room. Evelyn clapped her hands, calling everyone's attention. "Everyone, please gather around," she announced brightly. "We have a little surprise to celebrate Sarah and Tom's beautiful journey." Linda stayed at the edge of the crowd, heart steady, gaze unwavering. Sarah and Tom stood near the center, holding hands, smiling. But Linda noticed the tightness in Sarah's jaw, the way Tom shifted uncomfortably. A large projector lit up, showing photos of Sarah and Tom from their engagement, their wedding, family holidays. Laughter filled the room. People clapped politely. Then something changed. A video clip played. Not a wedding speech, not a vacation clip, but a quiet recording from years ago. Tom's voice filled the room. A younger Tom, smiling, sitting beside Linda, and his words echoed loud and clear. "Linda is my home, my peace. I don't ever want to lose her." The room fell silent. Every head turned, every eye widened. Evelyn's smile vanished. Sarah's grip tightened around her glass, knuckles white. Tom's eyes dropped to the floor. Linda stood still, letting the truth crash over the room like a tidal wave. Evelyn cleared her throat, her voice shaky. "That must have been an editing mistake." Linda slowly walked forward, voice calm, yet sharp. "No, it wasn't." Murmurs spread across the crowd, tension rising, thick enough to cut through. "I sent this video," Linda continued, "because it's time everyone remembered how easily people can forget what real love looks like." Sarah's face flushed red, her lips pressed into a thin line. Tom looked up. His expression was not anger, but something sadder, something heavier. Regret. Guests shifted uncomfortably, unsure whether to speak or stay quiet. Linda turned toward Evelyn, her voice steady. "For years, you pretended everything was fine, that you did what was best for me, for everyone. But this room, this gathering, it's built on lies, manipulation, and betrayal." Evelyn opened her mouth, but no words came out. Sarah suddenly stepped forward, her voice low, almost a whisper. Why are you here, Linda? Linda smiled, but it wasn't a bitter smile. It was peaceful. I'm here because you invited me, and I wanted you all to see that you didn't break me. You tried, but I rebuilt my life, stronger, happier, without any of you. The room stood frozen, tension swirling, thick and unrelenting. Tom finally spoke, voice rough, full of something like guilt. I never stopped thinking about you. Linda, gasps echoed, heads turned, all eyes on Tom and Linda. But Linda simply nodded. I didn't come here for you, she said softly. Her eyes swept across the room, then landed back on Evelyn. I came to remind myself I was never the problem. And with that, Linda took a small step back, letting the room absorb the silence, the truth, and their own shame. But the night was far from over. There was still more to come. The room remained frozen. After Linda's words, like the air had been sucked out completely, no one moved. No one dared to speak. Sarah stood rooted to the spot, her eyes flickering between fury and fear. Tom gripped his glass so tightly, Linda wondered if it would shatter in his hand, and Evelyn, for the first time, looked small. Linda's heart was calm, steady as she took another step forward. You see, Linda began, people told me I should forget the past, move on, pretend none of this happened. Her gaze swept across the room, landing on familiar faces, aunts, cousins, neighbors, all of whom had remained silent, while her world collapsed. But, pretending never healed anyone, Linda continued, it only buries the pain until it rots and poisons everything. Murmurs rippled through the room, but no one dared interrupt her now. Linda turned to Evelyn, her voice softer, but no less powerful. Mom, you always said you wanted the best for me, but what you really wanted was control. Evelyn's lips parted, but no words came out. Linda's voice grew firmer. You took my savings. You took my relationship. You turned my own sister against me, and still, you convinced yourself it was love. Evelyn's hands trembled, her mask cracking. Then, Linda looked directly at Sarah. And you weren't just my sister. You were supposed to be my best friend, but you chose convenience over loyalty, ambition over decency. Sarah's eyes watered, but her jaw tightened, too proud to let a tear fall. Linda took a deep breath, letting the silence linger, letting her words sink into every corner of the room. Then came the moment no one expected. Linda reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope. I didn't come here just to remind you who I am, Linda said quietly. I came to give you one last truth. She handed the envelope to Sarah with shaking hands. Sarah opened it. Inside were printed copies of business records, legal documents, and bank statements. Sarah frowned, confused. Linda spoke clearly, each word sharp, deliberate. 2 years ago, Tom invested in a business, a risky one. You didn't know, because he kept it quiet, hiding losses, hiding debts. Gasps echoed. Evelyn's face drained of color. Sarah's fingers trembled. Linda's voice remained steady. I recently bought controlling shares in that business, quietly, anonymously. And 2 weeks ago, Tom's company filed for bankruptcy. Tom's shoulders sagged. The arrogance in his posture vanished. Sarah clutched the papers, her chest rising and falling, panic setting in. Evelyn staggered back a step, grabbing the edge of a chair for balance. Linda's eyes remained calm as she delivered the final blow. Everything you schemed for, everything you betrayed me for, is now gone. The room erupted. Voices whispered, some in shock, some in disbelief, a few with admiration. But Linda stood tall, unshaken. Tom muttered, How did you? Linda cut him off. Because while you were plotting, was building. Her tone softened, but her gaze remained strong. I didn't come back to take revenge. I came back to show you. I survived. I built a life you couldn't touch. And now, I'm free. Sarah's hand fell limp to her side. Evelyn sat down heavily. Defeated. Linda inhaled deeply, feeling lighter, freer, stronger than she had ever felt in her life. She turned to the crowd. People who had watched her struggle, judged her, ignored her suffering. I don't need your approval. I don't need your applause, Linda said firmly. I just need you to remember. You can tear someone down, but you can't keep them down, unless they let you. Silence followed. Linda took one last look at the room, then turned toward the door, and just before she left, she paused, looking over her shoulder. Enjoy your party, she said, quietly. And with that, Linda walked away, her head held high, knowing this time she was leaving on her own terms, but life still had one more surprise waiting. Linda stepped out of the house, and the cool night air kissed her cheeks, as if the universe itself was welcoming her freedom. She walked down the familiar stone pathway, but her steps felt lighter, freer, almost joyful. As she reached her car, she couldn't help but chuckle softly. The family she once feared, the approval she once chased, now seemed ridiculous. Behind her, through the big living room window, Linda could still see the chaos. Sarah frantically flipping through papers, Tom pacing like a lost puppy, and Evelyn looked like a balloon someone had just popped. Linda whispered to herself, maybe I should have sold popcorn tickets to this drama. She laughed, a genuine, carefree laugh, something she hadn't done in years. Just as she was about to drive off, her phone vibrated. A text from Daniel. Still alive. Do I need to come bail you out of a food fight? Linda burst out laughing, alone in her car, feeling warmth bubble up in her chest. No food fight, just a well-timed corporate takedown, she texted back. Then she added, driving home, but I might stop by the bakery. I deserve cake after this. Daniel replied within seconds. Chocolate, double layer, don't settle. Linda smiled, heartful. As she drove through the quiet streets of her childhood town, she noticed, for the first time, she wasn't haunted by memories anymore. Every street corner, every park, every diner, now felt distant, like an old chapter she had finally closed. Halfway home, she stopped by the little bakery she used to love. The familiar smell of fresh bread and sugary frosting welcomed her like an old friend. The owner, Mrs. Foster, a sweet older lady with wild silver curls, looked up in surprise. Well, look who decided to show up after all these years, Mrs. Foster said, wiping her hands on her apron. Linda grinned. Thought I'd celebrate surviving a very dramatic evening. Double quotes. Mrs. Foster chuckled. You need the triple chocolate cake, and maybe a therapy session. But we're only offering cake tonight. Linda laughed. I'll take it. While Mrs. Foster packed the cake, Linda sat by the window, sipping warm chamomile tea. For a brief moment, it hit her. The quiet, the peace, the pure, unfiltered happiness. No drama, no fake smiles, no weight of someone else's expectations. Just Linda, being Linda. Mrs. Foster returned with the cake box, then leaned in a little, her voice playful. So, what's the story? You left this town like a ghost. Now you're back, looking like you walked out of a magazine. What happened? Linda smiled softly. I came back to end a story that should have ended years ago. Mrs. Foster nodded wisely. Ah, one of those closure visits. Exactly, Linda said. And I got more than I expected. Turns out, I didn't just move on, I leveled up. Mrs. Foster laughed heartily. Well, good for you, dear. Sometimes, the sweetest revenge is just living well. Linda couldn't agree more. With cake in hand and heart full, she drove back to her cozy little town, the place she now called home. Daniel was waiting outside her apartment, leaning casually against his car, grinning like a teenager. Linda got out. Daniel playfully asked, so, tell me, on a scale of awkward dinner to courtroom showdown, how bad was it? Linda smiled. Somewhere between soap opera meltdown and Wall Street revenge movie, with a touch of comedy. Daniel laughed. Now that's my kind of story. They went upstairs, sharing cake, trading stories, laughing until their sides hurt. Later that night, as Linda curled up on her couch, Daniel's arm around her, she realized something powerful. She didn't just survive betrayal. She didn't just win against manipulation. She reclaimed her happiness, her laughter, her peace. She found love without conditions, friendship without games, and life without guilt. That was the real victory. And for the first time in her life, Linda felt completely free. The morning after felt like a brand new life. Linda woke up, sunlight spilling through her windows, the soft ocean breeze drifting in, and for the first time in years, there was no heaviness, no dread, no regrets. She stretched, smiled, and realized this was what freedom felt like. Her phone buzzed, but this time, it wasn't chaos calling, it was peace. A simple, good morning message from Daniel, and an invitation for brunch at the little seaside cafe. Linda got dressed, light, simple, no need to impress anyone, just herself. At the cafe, Daniel was waiting, 2 coffees already on the table, one black for him, one creamy with a little cinnamon for her, just how she liked it. So, now that you've burned bridges, Daniel teased, what's next? Linda laughed. Not burned, just cleaned the pathway. Daniel nodded approvingly. So, what do you want to do now? With this brand new chapter? Linda thought for a moment, looking out at the calm ocean, the soft waves, reminding her that life keeps moving. I want to keep building, she said, but for me, not to prove anything, not to fight old battles, just to live fully, peacefully. Daniel smiled. Sounds like the best plan. But life had one final twist to offer. Later that afternoon, Linda received an email. It was from a former client, a woman she had helped back in the early days of her new life, who had just inherited a family business and wanted Linda to be her financial partner. It wasn't just a job offer. It was an opportunity to own something real, something honest, and grow it from the ground up. Linda sat back, letting the moment sink in. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't validation from people who never deserved her attention. It was life rewarding her for choosing herself. She accepted, with a smile. Weeks turned into months, and Linda's new business flourished. Daniel was by her side, not to fix her, not to save her, but to share life with her. The little coastal town became her sanctuary, her safe haven, where she could thrive on her own terms. Every so often, Linda would hear whispers from her old hometown. Sarah and Tom's financial troubles, Evelyn losing her tight grip over the family, strained relationships, broken trust. But Linda didn't dwell on it, not out of bitterness, but because it simply didn't matter anymore. She no longer felt the need to look back. Her focus was forward. One quiet evening, Linda sat on the porch, a book in hand, Daniel bringing her a warm cup of tea, and the ocean singing in the background. She reflected on the journey, on how life had broken her down, but forced her to rebuild, stronger, wiser, freer. And then, she smiled, not the polite smile she used to fake, not the defensive smile she used to shield herself, but a deep, peaceful, fulfilled smile, because she knew she had won. Not by hurting others, but by refusing to stay broken. Not by seeking revenge, but by choosing joy and peace. She had learned, life is too short to stay in places that dim your light, around people who don't value your heart. Linda closed her book, leaned back, and watched the sunset, knowing the best chapters of her life were just beginning, and she was finally exactly where she was meant to be. You know, stories like Linda's are far more common than we think. It's not just about betrayal or revenge. It's about rediscovering yourself when life tries to break you apart. It's about choosing peace over chaos, dignity over drama, and happiness over history. And maybe that's a lesson we all need to hear. No matter our age, have you ever walked away from something or someone that no longer served your happiness? Did you ever have to rebuild yourself, piece by piece, when others doubted you? I'd love to hear your story. Share it down in the comments. Let's remind each other that it's never too late to start fresh and take back control of our lives. And if this story moved you, even just a little, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because every week we share stories of strength, of quiet resilience, and of people just like you who chose to rise above. If you enjoyed this, I think you'll really love the next video. It's a powerful story about how one simple decision changed the course of someone's entire life. Until then, take care, stay strong, and always choose yourself.